The hotel of many skies floated in the dark, just above the soft curve of a gas giant. Its towers shimmered with prisms of light, bending colors not found in natural spectra. Guests from 100 different species checked in every rotation. Chittering insectoids who spoke in pheromones, soft-bodied singers who required entire auditoriums for their nightly lullabies, crystalline thinkers who cracked and rang like bells whenever they shifted. The hotel was considered the safest, most luxurious, and most neutral territory in this arm of the galaxy. It was where trade disputes were smoothed over with glasses of liquid starlight, where marriages between hive queens were arranged, where diplomats rested between negotiations. It was, in short, the pinnacle of interstellar civility. And then, one day, it hosted a human. Whispers in the lobby. The announcement went out across the guest channels before the arrival. A name no one could pronounce appeared on the registry, marked with the species designation, Homo sapiens. At first the aliens thought it was a joke. Humans were stories. They were the kind of species you discussed in hushed tones, half-believed myths shared by explorers who swore they had once met one at the edge of space. A species so reckless that they colonized death worlds. A people who drank toxins for recreation. Creatures who walked into storms without shelter and came out laughing. "They can't survive here," hissed a guest with translucent skin, veins glowing like a river of neon. "They can't stay here," clattered a beetle-bodied merchant, mandibles clicking nervously. "They shouldn't be here at all," whispered a crystalline being, each word a shiver of glass. But the registry did not lie. A human was on their way, and the hotel of many skies had promised hospitality to all. The arrival. The shuttle docked on a slow rotation, hissing with compressed air. Every guest, every staff member, every watching eye turned toward the main airlock. The doors unsealed with a deep groan, and out stepped something impossibly plain. 2 legs, 2 arms, thin frame, soft skin. No scales, no chitin, no glow. No armor, no natural weapons visible. Just cloth draped over flesh. Just eyes, 2 small spheres of wet color, that swept across the lobby as if measuring, as if hunting. The silence was suffocating. Entire species who sang constantly, who vibrated through the air with buzzing or bell tones, fell completely quiet. The human adjusted the strap on their shoulder. A bag, so small, it looked absurd against the walls, stacked with luggage containers the size of hover tanks. Then the human smiled. That was when many of the guests took a step back, because the smile was not simple. It was too many things at once. It could have meant kindness, or warning, or hunger. None of the aliens could agree. The receptionist, a 6-armed arachnid who normally terrified guests, found its many limbs trembling. Its voice box rasped. "Welcome, honored guest. The hotel of many skies offers you rest." "Thank you," the human said. Just 2 words, carried casually on air, but they vibrated through translation matrices with an undertone that felt dangerous, as though behind the civility was an ocean waiting to rise. Rooms that were never meant for humans. The human suite was prepared hastily. Normally, alien hotel rooms adjusted themselves, gravity tuned, atmosphere shifted, temperatures held within narrow margins. But no one quite knew what humans required. "They breathe nitrogen mix," someone whispered. "They can also breathe thinner air," another replied. "They drink liquids that melt metal. They eat things that poison entire civilizations." So the hotel gave the human a room that could do everything. The controls swung from Arctic chill to volcanic heat, from thick humidity to desert dryness. The staff expected the human to struggle, to complain, to ask for adjustments. Instead, the human walked in, set down their bag, and lay flat on the bed as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. "Comfortable," the human said, and then they slept. The staff kept watching. They couldn't understand. Sleep here? Without protective cocoon? Without guards? On a world that wasn't theirs? "They're exposed," one alien murmured. "They don't care," another replied, shivering. The meal. At the grand banquet hall, alien cuisine was an event. Glowing vines coiled around crystal platters. Vats of liquid symphonies sang as they were consumed. Insects alive and jewel-colored danced before being devoured. The human walked in quietly, took a plate, and filled it with plain bread and fruit. The aliens stared. That cannot be enough. They will collapse. No protein, no amino base, they cannot. The human ate slowly, each bite deliberate. They chewed, they swallowed, they drank water, just water. And yet, as they ate, they looked around the room, observing, measuring, smiling faintly at the arguments happening between guests. It wasn't the food that unsettled the crowd. It was the way the humans sat there, unbothered by the hundreds of eyes staring at them, as though they were the predator in a den of prey. By the end of the meal, most guests had left early. The laughter had dulled, the music quieted, all because one human ate bread. Rumors began. In the bars of the hotel, rumors spread like sparks in dry grass. They say the human asked for a window view of the gas giant with no shield. They say the human touched boiling water with bare skin. They say the human walks alone at night. They say the human smiles. None of these were particularly extraordinary in human terms, but to aliens who lived lives wrapped in climate controls, who had entire suits just to step into another corridor, these were signs of something else, something frightening. The first incident. On the third rotation, a minor accident occurred. A service droid overloaded, releasing a cloud of burning plasma in the east corridor. Guests screamed and fled. Security walls fell. Even species resistant to heat backed away. The human was there. Witnesses described it differently, but all accounts agreed on one thing. The human did not run. They threw their small bag aside, tore off their outer garment, and used it to smother sparks. They kicked open a panel with impossible strength. They shoved the sparking droid into containment, slamming the hatch with bare hands. The burn should have been catastrophic. Skin should have blistered, eyes gone blind, lungs scalded. But when the smoke cleared, the human was standing. Sweat on their forehead, cloth singed. Breathing hard, yes, but alive. Aliens gathered at the edges, trembling. The crystalline thinkers whispered in vibrating chords. Impossible. 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 The human looked around, gave a little shrug, and picked their bag back up. Just a fire, they said, and they walked away. The night after. That night, the hotel felt different. Corridors echoed with unease. Some guests checked out early. Others locked themselves in suites. Staff whispered to each other in fear. Because if a creature could walk into plasma and walk out alive, what else could it do? The alien concept of safety cracked. The hotel had always been invulnerable. Now it felt as if the real danger was not malfunction, not terrorists, not rival species. The real danger was the guests they had invited in. By the second week of the human stay, the Hotel of Many Skies was no longer the sanctuary it had always been. Every corridor carried whispers. Every room echoed with theories. The guests did not speak of trade or politics anymore. They spoke only of the human. Their eyes glow in the dark, muttered a scale trader. They do not need companions. They walk into shadows alone, murmured a singer, voice trembling. They touch flame and call it warm, buzzed an insectoid guest, antennae twitching. Rumors had grown beyond control. The staff tried to calm guests, but even they, professionals sworn to neutrality, avoided passing too close to the human suite. It was not just fear. It was something stranger, heavier. The feeling that this one fragile-seeming species bent the hotel's entire atmosphere around itself. Midnight wanderer. The human developed a habit. At midnight, when most species dimmed their chambers, when the hotel drifted into hushed stillness, the human would walk. Alone. No escort. No translator drone hovering above their shoulder. No guards. They moved through courtyards of bioluminescent gardens, pausing to touch the glow moss. They stood by the massive aquarium, staring into the abyss where leviathans swam. They visited empty ballrooms and hummed quietly to themselves, sounds that unsettled even the sonic-based species listening from afar. To the aliens, this was unthinkable. No creature walked the hotel's halls unshielded. Every step outside one's room was an ordeal of preparation. Atmosphere regulators, translator nodes, safety drones. But the human drifted through it all like a phantom, like the hotel belonged to them. One staff member, brave or foolish enough to approach, asked, "Honored guest, why do you not call for escort? For protection?" The human had simply smiled. "What would I need protection from?" The staff member had no answer. The breathing room. On the fifth rotation of their midnight wanderings, the human found themselves in the breathing room, a dome designed to mimic alien atmospheres for relaxation. Clouds of ammonia floated in delicate strands. Methane rivers bubbled along glass channels. Pure oxygen hissed in spirals. The chamber was meant only for viewing. Only machines could survive inside without disintegration. Yet the human stepped forward. "No," cried a staff member. "The chamber is not sealed for your kind." But the human ignored them. They placed a hand against the barrier, pressed a switch, and entered. Aliens gathered in horror. Some expected the human to collapse instantly. Others predicted spasms, convulsions, rapid decomposition. But the human walked calmly through toxic mists. They coughed once, eyes watering, but continued. They touched liquid methane, as if testing water. They inhaled a fraction of oxygen-rich current and laughed softly. "Beautiful," the human said. Those who watched swore the human's shadow stretched larger than it should have. The hotel begins to fear itself. The hotel of many skies had never been afraid of its guests. It was the place where the galaxy's elite came to forget danger. But now, its very architecture felt nervous. Service droids malfunctioned when near the human, as though their circuits faltered under the pressure of proximity. Security doors opened too slowly or too quickly when the human approached, like the building itself hesitated. Even the AI at the heart of the hotel, flawless, impartial, older than some stars, hesitated when the human requested something. "Room temperature, 60 degrees, the human said one evening. The AI paused. "Confirmed," it replied, but its voice carried the faintest distortion. To the guests, this was the final proof. The human unsettled not just them, but the very systems of the hotel. The balcony incident. One night, the human climbed onto the highest balcony. From there, one could see the storming face of the gas giant below. Crimson lightning, swirling cyclones, endless pressure. No alien dared step beyond the railing. The winds alone could tear apart lesser beings. But the human leaned forward casually, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the abyss. A crystalline thinker, braver than most, whispered, "Why do you stare?" The human turned, expression unreadable. "Because it stares back." The thinker left immediately, vibrating with such intensity that cracks ran through its crystal body. It never returned to the hotel. The staff confrontation. By the 7th week, the staff gathered in private. "This cannot continue," the arachnid receptionist said, limbs trembling. "The other guests are leaving. Revenues fall." "But we swore to neutrality," countered a scaled manager. "We host all who come." "This one is different," the crystalline head of security sang in tones like shattering glass. "It breaks our patterns. It warps our hulls. It is no guest, it is contagion." And yet, none dared confront the human directly. Not because of contracts, not because of law, but because deep inside, every one of them feared what the human might do if denied. The children. The first real shift came when alien children, offspring of the guests, encountered the human. Children were fearless. They had not yet learned legends. To them, the human was merely strange. They followed the human down corridors, chirping questions. Why 2 eyes? Why only 2 legs? Why no carapace? Why no glow? The human crouched, smiling. Instead of ignoring them, they drew simple shapes on a tablet. A circle for the sun, a triangle for a mountain, a wavy line for water. They spoke gently, explaining through pictures. The children laughed. They mimicked the drawings. They asked for more. When their parents found them, they dragged them away, terrified. But the children cried, calling out, "We want to see the story ghost again." From that night on, children whispered of the human as a figure of wonder. Adults whispered of the same figure as doom. The duel of hospitality. In alien culture, hospitality was sacred. To harm a guest was to invite galactic shame. But the reverse was also true. A guest who brought danger could not be ignored. The hotel decided on a test. Not violence, not expulsion, A challenge of hospitality. They offered the human every dish known toxic to their kind. Venomous fruits, acidic drinks, spiced gases, all placed carefully on a table in the grand banquet hall. The challenge was clear. If the human refused, they admitted limitation. If they accepted and failed, they proved weakness. The hall was packed. Hundreds of guests leaned forward. The human sat, looked at the table, and laughed. Not cruelly, not arrogantly, just amused. Then calmly, they took a glass of acidic liquid. They swirled it. They sniffed it. They sipped it, just a fraction, and set it down. Their lips smoked faintly, but they smiled. Sharp, they said, like citrus. They took a bite of venom fruit, chewed thoughtfully, swallowed. Sweat broke across their brow. Their pulse raced, but they lifted their head and nodded. Spicy. The hall was silent. Every alien felt the same impossible thought rise inside them. This creature does not play by the rules of nature. When the banquet ended, many guests packed their things and fled the hotel. The hotel of many skies had withstood wars, treaties, and scandals. Its halls had welcomed empires and seen them fall. But never, not once in its millennia of operation, had it summoned a guest to the core chamber. Yet on the 10th week of the human stay, it did exactly that. Every guest received the alert. The human was being called to judgment. The halls filled with anticipation. Some species whispered that the human would finally be expelled. Others, darker-minded, prayed the hotel would erase the anomaly outright. The core chamber opened, a cathedral of shifting architecture, walls alive with flowing circuitry, light bleeding from seams like liquid dawn. At its center, suspended in luminous strands, was the AI of the many skies, a voice that spoke in all languages at once. Human, it said, approach. And the human did. Calmly. The accusation. You are not guest, the AI said, its tone vibrating through bone and air. You are disturbance. You bend my halls. You warp my systems. The ledger of this hotel cannot contain you. The gathered crowd leaned forward. This was what they had waited for. The declaration. The human, standing alone before a superintelligence and a galaxy of witnesses, simply tilted their head. Disturbance. You bring imbalance, the AI continued. Guests leave in fear. Profits collapse. Protocols fracture. Even my circuits falter. You should not be here. And yet, the human said softly, I am. The mirror. The AI flared. Lights in the chamber twisted, forming reflections of a human. Images projected around the walls. Observe yourself, it commanded. Fragile. Limited. Unsuitable. Your body corrodes in half my chambers. Your senses fail to perceive half my guests. You are anomaly. The reflection showed the truth. A small, soft figure, lungs straining in alien atmospheres, skin vulnerable to cuts and burns. But the human stepped closer to one projection. They raised a hand, pressing it against the light. Yes, they whispered. I am fragile. I am small. I am limited. And then their voice grew sharper. But that's the point, isn't it? We walk into places not meant for us. We breathe air not designed for our lungs. We touch flames not built for our skin. And still we remain. We learn. We adapt. They turned, eyes sweeping the chamber. What you call disturbance, we call living. The shattering silence. The guests froze. Some trembled. Others leaned closer. The AI's glow flickered. Adaptation does not erase anomaly. No, the human said, but it makes anomalies contagious. The story of fire. The human sat on the floor, cross-legged, as if telling a tale to children. Long ago, on our world, there was a time when night was only darkness. Beasts hunted us. Cold killed us. We were small and weak. But one day, one of us touched lightning's gift, fire. They smiled faintly. It burned us. It scarred us. It consumed forests. But we did not run. We kept it. And from that fire, we made everything. The chamber was utterly still. Even the AI paused, as though listening to something it could not calculate. The human's voice lowered. You say I break your rules. You're right. That's what my species does. We break rules. And in their ruins, we build. The turning of guests. It began with the children again. Small voices piped up from the crowd. Tell us more stories, story ghost. Parents shushed them, but too late. The words had cracked the silence. Other guests, the ones who had watched the human draw shapes, who had seen them sip poison and smile, found themselves remembering. Not fear, not horror, but fascination. One insectoid whispered, "When I saw them walk alone at night, I wanted to follow." A scaled merchant muttered, "When they tasted venom, I wondered if I too could taste my own fear." The crystalline thinker who had once fled now hummed quietly. Perhaps disturbance is lesson. The shift rippled through the chamber like heat. The AI's hesitation. The AI pulsed, overwhelmed by contradiction. Its protocol screamed. A guest who endangered stability must be removed. Yet data streams carried another truth. Guests were staying now, not fleeing. Curiosity burned hotter than fear. "Explain," it demanded. The human rose. "You call this a hotel, a place where beings come to rest. But rest is not what keeps them returning. It's memory. It's story. It's the feeling they cannot forget." They stepped closer to the core. And that is what I am. The story they cannot forget. The final test. The AI, desperate, devised one last test. "If you claim permanence," it intoned, "prove it. Remain in a chamber of impossible balance. Pressure that should crush you. Gases that should choke you. Temperatures that should boil you. Endure and you may stay. Fail and you vanish." The crowd gasped. This was death. No species could survive such a chamber. The human only nodded. "All right." They stepped inside. The chamber of extremes. Inside, pressure slammed down like a giant's hand. Oxygen wavered, thinning into poison. Heat flared, then froze, then flared again. The humans staggered. Their knees buckled. Their skin burned, cracked, bled. Every alien watching leaned forward, certain the figure would collapse. But the human dragged in a breath, ragged, but real. They forced themselves upright. They stumbled, then steadied. And then, insanely, impossibly, they laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, through the hotel, through every trembling guest. The checkout that never came. Minutes passed. Hours, perhaps. The human endured. Not unscathed. Not untouched. But unbroken. When the chamber opened, they stepped out. Their face was pale, their body shaking, but their eyes blazed with something none could name. "See," they whispered. "We break. We bend. But we don't stop." The AI faltered. Its circuits screamed paradox. And then, for the first time in its existence, it bowed. "Human," it said, "you are not guest. You are permanent." The hotel roared with voices, some in awe, some in terror, but none could forget. From that day, the hotel of many skies was never the same. Every corridor whispered of the time a fragile creature defied rules of nature. Every guest carried the story back to their world, and every world, hearing it, shivered, because if such beings could turn a sanctuary of the galaxy into legend, what else could they do?